Have you ever felt the searing anger of being treated like a criminal in your own hometown? Imagine walking into a place that's supposed to safeguard your rights, only to be met with suspicion and disdain because of who you are. This is not a distant horror. It's happening right now. Our institutions, once trusted to protect and serve, are failing us by perpetuating a system that values prejudice over justice. Today, we pull back the curtain on a reality where power is abused, and every day, innocent people are trampled under the weight of discrimination. It's time to confront the raw, unfiltered truth about an oppressive system that keeps us divided and silenced. Are you ready to feel the fury and join the fight for real change? Maya Rivera wasn't born into an ordinary life. Every morning, as the first rays of dawn stretched over Atlanta's skyline, she awoke to a city pulsing with promise and purpose. A city where every brick on the historic streets and every echo in the bustling corridors of City Hall told a story of hope, struggle, and transformation. Maya's room, nestled in a modest yet tastefully decorated apartment overlooking a leafy neighborhood in Atlanta, was a sanctuary of warmth and memories. Faded posters of local jazz legends, vintage photographs capturing moments of community celebrations, and a carefully curated collection of well-worn books lined the walls. The soft glow of a bedside lamp mingled with the pastel light of early morning, inviting her to rise and greet a new day. Despite the weight of expectations that came with her name, after all, she was the daughter of Mayor Anthony Rivera, a man admired and sometimes scrutinized for his leadership. The quiet intimacy of her room offered Maya a rare space to be just herself. Every detail in that room spoke of a life filled with both legacy and individual dreams. A shelf crowded with sketchbooks and poetry collections hinted at her creative soul, while a small desk adorned with trinkets from family gatherings and community events reminded her of the deep ties that bound her to the city. On this particular morning, however, Maya felt an undercurrent of change, a subtle shift in the air, as if the city itself was urging her to awaken to its challenges and embrace the beauty of its imperfections. She slipped out of bed with a mixture of determination and gentle reluctance. The heavy wooden floor creaked softly under her bare feet as she padded toward the window, pulling back the curtains to reveal a panorama of Atlanta bathed in the warm hues of sunrise. The city was already alive. Downtown skyscrapers glittered like beacons of ambition, while the historic district, with its cobblestone streets and time-worn facades, exuded a sense of resilience and enduring charm. It was in this intricate blend of modernity and history that Maya had grown up, a living testament to the evolution of a community that valued both progress and its roots. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint, inviting scent of toasted bagels, a morning ritual that her mother, Elena Rivera, lovingly prepared. Elena's quiet smile and soft-spoken words of encouragement had always been a source of comfort for Maya. "Remember, my love, every day is a chance to write a new story," her mother would say, as she arranged a vase of wildflowers on the kitchen table. Today, those words resonated more than ever. Maya felt a gentle stirring within her, a mix of anticipation and a subtle anxiety that hinted at the challenges ahead. As she dressed, Maya chose an outfit that was both simple and elegant. A light sweater paired with comfortable jeans and a pair of worn sneakers that had carried her through many journeys in the city. She preferred the understated look. The idea of drawing attention solely because of her last name had always felt like a barrier to her true identity. Instead, she longed to be recognized for her own merits, a person of passion, integrity, and quiet strength. Draping a soft, navy blue scarf around her neck, a gift from her late grandmother, she took a moment to adjust it just so, feeling the familiar comfort of its fabric, a reminder of the legacy of resilience and love that ran through her family. Maya's heart raced as she left the apartment and stepped into the vibrant streets of Atlanta. The morning air was crisp and invigorating, carrying with it the sounds and scents of a city that never truly slept. Street vendors arranged their displays with practiced care, local musicians set up impromptu performances on street corners, and neighbors exchanged friendly greetings as they passed by. It was a tableau of daily life, woven together by the shared experiences of a community that faced both triumph and hardship with unwavering spirit. The journey to City Hall was one that Maya had made countless times, Yet today it felt different, as if every step was laden with a deeper significance. While most people viewed City Hall as simply a building, to Maya it represented the very heart of Atlanta's civic life. It was where ideas were born, debates were held, and policies shaped the lives of thousands. Her father, Mayor Anthony Rivera, was a prominent figure here, a man whose dedication to public service had brought about tangible change, even as he wrestled with the complex demands of leadership. Yet, despite his public stature, Maya had always craved the anonymity of a regular citizen, the freedom to walk the streets without the weight of constant expectations. On the bustling sidewalks, as she merged with the steady flow of commuters and locals, Maya's mind drifted to the legacy of her family. Mayor Rivera's tenure had been marked by bold initiatives and sometimes controversial decisions, but his unwavering commitment to justice and equality had earned him both praise and criticism. Maya admired his passion, yet she also longed for a world where her identity would not be inextricably linked to his political career, a world where she could define herself on her own terms. Today, however, as she approached the imposing marble facade of Atlanta City Hall, she couldn't help but feel that the city was speaking to her. The building loomed large against the clear blue sky, its columns and arches a testament to a bygone era of grandeur and civic pride. Yet beneath its majestic exterior lay the pulse of a community that was evolving, grappling with the complexities of modern life. For Maya, this juxtaposition of history and progress stirred a deep sense of responsibility and hope, a reminder that change was not only possible but necessary. The streets around City Hall buzzed with activity. Office workers hurried along, their briefcases and smartphones a blur of modern business, while local activists gathered outside, their voices raised in quiet determination to make their voices heard. As she neared the entrance, Maya felt a subtle mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The building was more than just a symbol of governance. It was a living, breathing entity that held within it the hopes and dreams of countless individuals, each with their own story to tell. Stepping through the grand entrance, Maya's senses were immediately enveloped by the cool, hushed atmosphere of the historic lobby. The polished marble floors, high ceilings, and soft murmur of conversations created an ambience of solemn dignity. Here, in this space where decisions that affected the very fabric of Atlanta were made, Maya could almost feel the weight of history pressing gently against her shoulders, a reminder of the sacrifices and triumphs of those who had come before her. In that moment, as she paused to take in the grandeur of her surroundings, Maya felt a stirring of emotions, an inner dialogue that mixed pride with a bittersweet longing for simplicity. She remembered childhood days when the world was full of wonder and the boundaries between possibility and reality were blurred. Now, as she navigated the corridors of power, she couldn't help but wonder if the innocence of those early dreams had been slowly eroded by the burdens of expectation and the harsh realities of public life. Yet, within that uncertainty lay an ember of resolve. Maya knew that she was at a crossroads, a point where she could choose to let the past define her or step forward and forge her own path. The vibrant energy of Atlanta, the echoes of its storied past, and the undeniable promise of a better future coalesced into a singular, powerful drive. It was the drive to be heard, to make a difference, and to claim her own identity in a world that too often sought to label and limit. As she made her way to the administrative offices, her mind buzzed with the possibilities of the day ahead. There were meetings, community outreach programs, and perhaps even a chance to quietly influence the policies that shaped the city's destiny. But beyond the professional responsibilities, there was a personal journey, a quest for self-discovery amid the noise of public expectations. Maya's heart, though heavy with the legacy of her family's reputation, beat with a quiet determination to be more than just a reflection of her father's shadow. She was, in her own right, a beacon of hope and possibility, eager to illuminate the path forward with compassion, creativity, and courage. The morning passed in a blur of greetings, brief exchanges with familiar faces, and silent moments of introspection as Maya navigated the labyrinthine halls of City Hall. Every step was a reminder that the city, with all its contradictions and complexities, was a canvas upon which she could paint a future defined by empathy, fairness, and relentless determination. It was in these moments of quiet introspection that Maya realized how deeply intertwined her destiny was with that of Atlanta, a city that had seen both the darkest days of despair and the brightest moments of triumph. By the time she reached the inner sanctum of the mayor's office, Maya felt a surge of mixed emotions, a cocktail of pride, hope, and a lingering uncertainty about what the day might bring. Her father's office, with its panoramic views of the city and walls adorned with accolades and photographs of civic milestones, stood as both a symbol of achievement and a reminder of the relentless pressures of leadership. Here, in this space charged with the weight of public service, Maya understood that her journey was just beginning. It was a journey that demanded resilience, compassion, and a steadfast belief in the power of change. In that pivotal moment, as Maya paused before the door to the mayor's office, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the present and the possibilities that lay ahead. The challenges of the day, the legacy of her family, and the vibrant spirit of Atlanta converged into a single, potent force that beckoned her forward. She knew that no matter what obstacles awaited her, she would embrace them with an open heart and an unwavering commitment to her own truth. How do you think you would navigate the challenges of balancing personal identity with a powerful family legacy? Stepping into the lower lobby of Atlanta City Hall, Maya felt a momentary reprieve from the early morning vibrance of the city outside. Yet, as she approached the security checkpoint, a new, imposing installation meant to enhance safety, an undercurrent of tension began to seep into the atmosphere. The area was designed with sleek, modern lines, glass panels separating waiting areas from staff-only zones, polished metal detectors, and a row of security bins lined neatly along the wall. Despite its contemporary appearance, there was something about the setup that made Maya's stomach knot with apprehension. Maya joined a steadily growing line of visitors, each waiting their turn for a routine scan of their belongings. While the process was intended to ensure the safety of everyone inside, the experience today felt markedly different. Conversations were hushed, eyes shifted nervously, and a collective sense of being observed hung palpably in the air. As she inched closer to the checkpoint, her mind raced with thoughts about the legacy of her family and the weight of expectations that came with her name. The hope that she might someday be recognized for her own contributions was now tainted by a sudden, unsettling premonition. A feeling that, in this moment, her individuality might be obscured by assumptions and stereotypes. At the front of the line stood a tall, broad-shouldered security officer whose presence seemed to command the space around him. His name tag read Officer Blake, and his steely gaze scanned the crowd with a seriousness that bordered on suspicion. Unlike the warm smiles of familiar faces that Maya had encountered earlier that morning, Officer Blake's expression was unreadable, his eyes hard and calculating. When Maya finally reached the front, she tried to steady her breathing. With a polite smile, she handed over her bag to the attendant, who then placed her belongings on the conveyor belt for the scanner. As her items passed beneath the arch of the metal detector, she became acutely aware of Officer Blake's unblinking attention. It wasn't long before his eyes locked onto hers, a look that conveyed more than a simple security check. There was an intensity there that made her feel exposed, as though every aspect of her being was under an unwelcome microscope. "Good morning," Officer Blake said in a curt tone that matched his somber expression. "I need you to step aside for a brief secondary screening." Maya's heart skipped a beat. The words, so casually spoken, carried an implication that she was not merely a regular visitor. Despite her polite nod and her careful attempt to keep her composure, a subtle shiver ran down her spine. In that moment, the gentle morning routine she had clung to was abruptly shattered by an icy chill of uncertainty. She followed Officer Blake to a small, isolated area adjacent to the main hall. The space was cramped, its walls painted a sterile white that did nothing to soothe the growing anxiety inside her. As soon as they were out of the immediate line of sight, Officer Blake's demeanor shifted ever so slightly. His eyes, previously sharp and vigilant, now burned with an intensity that was almost accusatory. "State your purpose for entering City Hall today," he demanded, his tone low and edged with skepticism. Maya, gathering her thoughts, replied, "I'm here to attend the Youth Civic Engagement Workshop. I received an invitation in the mail." She reached into her bag and produced a neatly printed card with the event details, trying to inject as much calm into her voice as possible. Officer Blake scrutinized the card as though it might be a forgery. He flipped it over, then back again, his gaze never leaving hers. Minutes stretched uncomfortably long as Maya stood silently, acutely aware of every subtle shift in her surroundings. The distant hum of conversation in the main lobby, the soft clatter of footsteps, even the rhythmic ticking of a clock that suddenly felt too loud. "You seem to be nervous," he finally remarked, almost as if he were observing an anomaly in his otherwise routine work. "Is there a reason for that?" Maya hesitated for a moment, wondering if her response might be misinterpreted. "I know. I'm just a bit overwhelmed," she stammered, her cheeks flushing with a mix of embarrassment and indignation. Internally, a spark of defiance began to kindle. She had been raised to stand her ground, to assert her dignity even when facing unwarranted scrutiny. Officer Blake's eyes narrowed, and for a second, his voice softened ever so slightly. "Overwhelmed? Because of the procedure or something else?" His tone, while still formal, hinted at an underlying challenge. It was as if he expected more from her, perhaps a confession, an admission that would validate his suspicion. In that tense moment, Maya's mind raced back to the lessons of her childhood, the words of her late grandmother echoing in her ears. "Stand tall, even when the winds of adversity threaten to knock you down." Drawing upon that inner strength, Maya met his gaze firmly, her voice steady despite the tumult within. "I have nothing to hide," she said, her tone carrying both respect and a hint of quiet resolve. "I came here as any citizen would, with a desire to learn, to contribute, and to make my voice heard in this city I love." There was a pause, an unspoken standoff that seemed to stretch on forever. Officer Blake's expression remained inscrutable as he studied her, his eyes flicking over the invitation, then back to her face. Around them, the hum of the busy lobby continued, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding in this small, unremarkable corner of the grand building. Finally, with a slight nod, Officer Blake handed back the invitation. "Very well," he said, his voice now carrying the finality of a decision made without further explanation. "You may proceed." But even as he spoke, his eyes lingered on Maya a moment longer than necessary, a look that left her questioning the real reason behind his scrutiny. As Maya rejoined the line, a mix of relief and lingering unease washed over her. She could hear the murmur of conversations around her, some sympathetic, others laced with the undercurrent of gossip. A couple of bystanders exchanged knowing glances, and one older gentleman muttered something under his breath that Maya couldn't quite make out. The entire experience left her with a sense of being singled out, not because of any misdeed, but perhaps because of who she was and what her family represented. Once through the checkpoint, Maya found a quiet corner near a window to compose herself. The bustling energy of City Hall, usually a source of inspiration for her, now seemed marred by the sting of being unjustly scrutinized. Every moment of the encounter replayed in her mind, the piercing look, the probing questions, and the subtle dismissal that echoed in the sterile air of that small room. In the following moments, as she walked away from the checkpoint and re-entered the heart of City Hall, Maya's thoughts turned inward. Was the procedure inherently flawed, or was it simply a case of a guard overstepping his bounds? And what did it mean for her, a young woman striving to make her own mark, to be treated differently simply because of who her father was? The questions swirled like autumn leaves in the wind, each one challenging her to look beyond the surface of the event. The encounter, brief as it was, became a turning point, a moment of uncomfortable clarity that underscored the challenges of living in a society where appearances and assumptions often overshadowed individual merit. The incident wasn't just a random glitch in the system. It was emblematic of deeper issues within the city's approach to security and, more importantly, its readiness to judge based on preconceived notions. As Maya slowly regained her composure, she couldn't help but feel a burgeoning resolve. The sting of being unjustly singled out stoked a fire within her, a determination not to let such incidents define her or the future of civic engagement in her beloved Atlanta. With each step she took away from the checkpoint, Maya promised herself that she would use this experience as fuel, a catalyst for advocating for change, for ensuring that no one else would have to endure such a disheartening encounter. Her journey through City Hall had just begun, and already it was proving to be an unexpected crucible for testing her strength and convictions. The episode at the security checkpoint was more than a moment of personal discomfort. It was a reflection of the broader struggles that many citizens faced every day, struggles for dignity, respect, and the right to be seen for who they truly were, rather than for the labels imposed upon them by others. How would you react if you were in Maya's shoes, being singled out and scrutinized in a place meant to be welcoming and safe? After the unsettling encounter at the security checkpoint, Maya found herself slowly readjusting to the rhythm of City Hall. Though the earlier tension still clung to her thoughts, she was determined not to let it overshadow the promise of the day. Ahead lay the Youth Civic Engagement Workshop, a forum that, for many young Atlantans, was a rare opportunity to voice ideas, share concerns, and learn the intricacies of civic participation. For Maya, it was a chance to reclaim her morning, to transform a moment of personal discomfort into a powerful stepping stone toward the change she longed to see. The workshop was held in one of the larger conference rooms, its interior bathed in natural light streaming through tall, arched windows. The walls were adorned with vibrant posters celebrating Atlanta's rich history and cultural diversity, reminders of the city's enduring spirit and the continuous evolution of its people. As Maya entered the room, she was greeted by a gentle murmur of anticipation and friendly chatter among a diverse group of young attendees, all gathered to share their passion for civic improvement. In one corner of the room, a banner boldly declared, "Empowering the Future of Atlanta," a call to arms for a generation eager to influence policy and community well-being. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of nervous excitement and the hopeful determination of individuals ready to make a difference. Maya's heart quickened as she scanned the room, recognizing faces from various community centers, youth groups, and local activist circles. The collective energy was palpable, and in that moment, she felt a sense of unity that transcended the earlier discord of the security screening. Taking her seat among the other participants, Maya allowed herself to be enveloped by the sense of possibility. She recalled the many conversations she had overheard on her journey through City Hall, the snippets of debates on public safety, the whispered hopes for educational reform, and the quiet promises of a more equitable future. Today, every voice in the room, regardless of background or status, was valued equally. Here, ideas mattered more than titles or legacies. The facilitator for the workshop, Ms. Jordan, a dynamic community organizer known for her charismatic and inclusive approach, took the stage. With a warm smile and an engaging presence, she welcomed everyone, setting the tone for the day. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice both inviting and resolute. "Today, we stand at the crossroads of tradition and transformation. Our city is built on stories of struggle and triumph, and it is in our hands to continue that legacy by ensuring that every voice is heard and every person is treated with dignity." Her words resonated deeply with Maya. She recalled her own inner turmoil from the morning, the flash of scrutiny at the checkpoint, the heavy silence that followed, and how those moments, though painful, were seeds from which the desire for change could grow. Maya's gaze drifted around the room, and she noticed that each person seemed to carry their own quiet determination. There was a young man in the front row with eyes full of ambition, a pair of friends animatedly discussing ideas at a table, and even a few seasoned activists whose experiences lent a profound gravity to the conversation. The day unfolded with a series of interactive sessions. In one segment, small groups were tasked with brainstorming innovative solutions for improving public services, ranging from more inclusive security protocols at public institutions to initiatives aimed at bridging the resource gap in underserved neighborhoods. Maya found herself deeply engaged in her group's discussion. The topic of community trust in public institutions, sparked by her own experience earlier that morning, quickly became a focal point. Her group, composed of individuals from various cultural and socio-economic backgrounds, shared their thoughts candidly. One participant, a soft-spoken girl named Jasmine, recounted instances where citizens felt marginalized by systems meant to protect them. Another, an enthusiastic young man named Marcus, offered ideas on how technology could be harnessed to enhance transparency in government processes. Maya, though initially quiet, began to contribute her insights. Her words measured but imbued with the raw honesty of someone who had just faced prejudice firsthand. As the discussion progressed, Maya noticed that the workshop was more than just a platform for generating ideas. It was a crucible where personal experiences converged with collective hope. The emotions in the room were multifaceted. There was a shared frustration over the systemic issues that plagued their community, but also an undercurrent of optimism, a belief that, together, they could craft a future that transcended the limitations of the past. In a particularly memorable breakout session, each participant was invited to share a personal story that had influenced their perspective on civic engagement. When it was Maya's turn, a hush fell over her small group. Though her heart pounded with residual anxiety from the earlier ordeal, she found strength in the vulnerability of that moment. She spoke of the unsettling encounter at the checkpoint, of the piercing gaze that made her feel less than a full citizen, and of the inner turmoil that left her questioning whether the system was as impartial as it claimed to be. Her voice, steady yet emotive, wove a narrative of both pain and empowerment. She described how that incident, an act of scrutiny that was meant to ensure security, had instead underscored the pervasive mistrust and bias that could exist even in spaces designed to serve the public. "I realized," Maya said softly, "that this is not just about me. It's about all of us who have ever felt invisible or unjustly judged. It's about transforming our experiences into a rallying cry for change." Her story was met with silence at first, the weight of her words lingering in the air. Then, slowly, nods of understanding and murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. In that moment, Maya felt a profound connection with the other young citizens, each of them, in their own way, carrying the scars of past injustices but also the hope of a renewed future. Throughout the session, Ms. Jordan skillfully guided the conversation, encouraging participants to envision a city where diversity was celebrated and every individual's rights were fiercely protected. She highlighted success stories from other cities, where grassroots movements had led to meaningful policy changes, and invited the group to think about how such models could be adapted to their own context. Maya's mind buzzed with ideas. She started jotting down notes fervently, her pen racing across the paper as she captured every spark of inspiration. The workshop had ignited something within her, a recognition that she was not merely a bystander in the civic arena, but a potential catalyst for reform. Despite the heavy burdens of her past and the complexities of her family legacy, here she was, standing shoulder to shoulder with peers who believed in the power of collective action. As the morning session drew to a close, the room was filled with a sense of cautious optimism. Breakout groups were reconvening, ideas were being refined, and plans for future collaborations were taking shape. Maya's group decided to draft a proposal aimed at overhauling the city's security protocols to ensure that every citizen was treated with respect and fairness. Their proposal emphasized transparency, accountability, and community oversight, a blueprint for reform that resonated deeply with the collective experiences shared earlier. By the end of the session, as participants mingled and exchanged contact information, a renewed sense of purpose permeated the room. Maya felt a subtle shift within herself, a budding confidence that the obstacles of the morning could be transformed into a source of strength and advocacy. The experience had not only affirmed her belief in the importance of civic engagement, but had also illuminated the path toward becoming an active participant in shaping the future of Atlanta. Walking out of the conference room into the vibrant afternoon, the city felt different. The echoes of impassioned speeches, the shared nods of solidarity, and the tangible sense of community lingered in the air. Maya couldn't help but smile as she reflected on the morning, a mixture of personal trials and collective triumphs that had forever changed her perspective on what it meant to be a leader in her community. What would be your first step in turning a personal challenge into a meaningful movement for change? After the workshop concluded, the echo of passionate debates and shared dreams still resonated within Maya's mind. The afternoon sun filtered through Atlanta City Hall's high windows, casting long shadows on the corridors as she walked purposefully toward the administrative wing. Despite the inspiring energy of the morning, a lingering heaviness tugged at her heart, a tension that went beyond the walls of the conference room. This was the moment when personal experience met familial duty, when the ideals of civic reform clashed with the pragmatic responsibilities of power. Maya's thoughts were interrupted by the muted hum of conversations as she neared the mayor's private office. She knew that behind those sturdy doors, her father, Mayor Anthony Rivera, was undoubtedly immersed in the day's many pressing matters. Yet today was different. The incident at the security checkpoint, the stinging suspicion and the cold detachment of Officer Blake, had ignited a spark of disquiet within her. That same disquiet now mingled with the fear of how her father would react to the news, knowing that every small misstep could be magnified under the unforgiving glare of the media and political adversaries. Steeling herself, Maya pressed the doorbell of her father's office. The chime echoed in the quiet hallway before the door swung open, revealing a weary yet attentive Mayor Rivera. His eyes, usually so steady and filled with a calm assurance, now bore lines of concern and a hint of guilt. As if reading the storm of emotions behind her determined gaze, he offered a gentle, "Maya, come in." Inside, the room was a blend of personal memorabilia and symbols of civic achievement. Photographs of community events and heartfelt thank-you notes from constituents were arranged neatly on the walls. Behind the polished mahogany desk, the mayor sat with his hands folded, a posture that conveyed both authority and vulnerability. The room, usually a space where challenges were dissected and decisions made, today felt charged with an unspoken tension. "Dad," Maya began softly, her voice a mixture of determination and anxiety, "I need to talk to you about something that happened this morning." She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "At the security checkpoint, I was singled out and questioned by Officer Blake in a way that felt wrong. It wasn't just routine. There was an intensity in his gaze that made me feel judged, not as a citizen, but because of who I am." Mayor Rivera's expression darkened slightly. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes reflecting a conflict between his paternal instincts and the cold pragmatism demanded by his public role. "I'm aware that incidents like these can happen, Maya," he said, his tone measured but with an underlying edge of regret. "Our city's security measures are designed to protect everyone. However, I understand that today you felt targeted." Maya's eyes searched his face, looking for reassurance. "But, Dad, it wasn't just that. Felt like my very identity was under scrutiny. I've always tried to walk the line between being true to myself and fulfilling my duties as your daughter. Today, I felt as though my presence was treated as an anomaly, an intrusion rather than a welcome one." A heavy silence followed her words, the only sound being the soft ticking of an antique clock on the wall, a constant reminder of time passing and decisions being made. Finally, Mayor Rivera sighed deeply, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Maya, I know that you face challenges that many cannot even imagine. My position, the legacy of our family, it all comes with a weight. And sometimes, in our quest to safeguard our institutions, we lose sight of the individual. I'm truly sorry you had to experience that." His apology, though sincere, carried the weight of a seasoned leader caught in the crossroads of duty and personal belief. For a brief moment, Maya felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Relief that her father acknowledged her pain, and frustration that, even in his apology, the systemic nature of the problem was glossed over. "Dad, it's not just about me," she countered, her voice steadying with resolve. "It's about every citizen who might be made to feel less than they are. I want to believe that City Hall is a place where everyone is treated with dignity. But when even I, the mayor's daughter, am scrutinized, it makes me question the integrity of our security protocols." The mayor's eyes darkened further as he considered her words. "I've been receiving reports," he admitted, "and there are murmurs of similar experiences from other visitors. It's a delicate situation, Maya. While we have policies in place, the implementation sometimes falls short. I have to balance the demands of public safety with the need to maintain a welcoming atmosphere for everyone." Maya reached out, gently placing her hand over his. "Dad, I understand the challenges you face, but as much as I respect our duty to protect, I believe we can do better. We need to ensure that security measures are applied without prejudice, without letting personal biases slip in." Otherwise, we risk alienating the very people we're supposed to serve. Her words, firm yet laden with empathy, hung in the air. For a moment, the mayor looked as if he was weighing every syllable, every emotion behind them. "I promise you," he said at length, his voice low and resolute, "I will address this issue with the department head and ensure that there is an immediate review of our procedures. No one should ever feel singled out in a place that's meant to be open and inclusive. I'll also speak with Officer Blake about his conduct. We must make sure that our actions reflect the values we champion as a city." Maya's heart felt a measure of relief at her father's pledge. Yet, beneath that relief lay a recognition of the complexity of the issues at hand. The conversation wasn't merely about one incident. It was about the entrenched practices that could easily slip into discrimination if left unchecked. "Dad, I want to be part of the solution," she continued, her eyes locking with his. "I believe that my experience, and those of others like me, can serve as a catalyst for real change. We need to make sure that every policy is reviewed through the lens of fairness and respect for all citizens."
Mayor Rivera nodded slowly.
"You're right, Maya. Change doesn't come from ignoring the problem. It comes from confronting it head-on, even when it hits close to home. I appreciate your courage in bringing this up, and I want you to know that your voice matters, both as a member of this community and as someone who knows what it feels like to be on the receiving end of bias." Their conversation, though heavy with the realities of political life and familial duty, slowly transformed into a collaborative dialogue, a merging of personal experience with the vision of a better future. As they spoke, the room seemed to breathe with the promise of reform, a promise that even in the most challenging moments, dialogue and understanding could pave the way for change. In that quiet office, filled with memories and the silent echoes of past decisions, Maya and her father forged a tentative alliance. It was an alliance born of mutual respect and the shared realization that the journey to a more just society required constant vigilance, honest introspection, and, above all, the willingness to listen and learn from each other. By the time their conversation drew to a close, the tension had receded, replaced by a cautious optimism. Maya knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, political pressures, public scrutiny, and the ever-present specter of systemic bias. But she also recognized that she wasn't alone. With the support of her father and the community of passionate young citizens, she felt empowered to turn personal pain into a force for collective change. Stepping out of the mayor's office later that afternoon, Maya paused in the corridor to gather her thoughts. The weight of the day's events still lingered, but there was also a spark, a realization that every difficult conversation was a stepping stone toward a more equitable future. The reflections in that quiet moment were a reminder that leadership wasn't just about power or position. It was about empathy, accountability, and the courage to challenge the status quo. What do you believe is the most important quality for a leader to have when addressing systemic issues within an organization? In the days that followed the intense conversation with her father, Maya's life began to shift from the private corridors of City Hall to the very public stage of Atlanta's civic discourse. The unsettling encounter with Officer Blake had rapidly evolved into a focal point of a broader debate, a debate that transcended personal experience and resonated with countless citizens across the city. News of the incident had broken quietly at first, trickling into local news feeds and social media with a mix of disbelief and outrage. Headlines questioned the integrity of the security protocols at City Hall, and whispers of selective scrutiny quickly transformed into a roaring chorus demanding accountability. For Maya, whose experience had been both deeply personal and emblematic of a systemic problem, the response of the public was both affirming and disconcerting. Internal Affairs was swift to act. A dedicated team was assigned to investigate Officer Blake's conduct, scrutinizing every detail of the incident, from the CCTV footage that captured his unnerving gaze to the testimonies of those who had witnessed the screening. The inquiry was not just a routine examination. It was a reckoning, one that would test the very values the city prided itself on. Maya found herself at the center of the storm. Calls flooded into her phone, from concerned friends, passionate community activists, and even strangers who identified with her plight. Social media hashtags began to trend, hashtag respect every citizen, and hashtag Atlanta for all. Each message of solidarity bolstered her resolve, yet also reminded her of the heavy responsibility that lay on her shoulders. Despite her reluctance to be a symbol, the incident had ignited a spark that demanded to be fanned into a movement for lasting change. At a hastily convened press conference, Mayor Anthony Rivera addressed the growing controversy. With a calm but resolute demeanor, he confirmed that the matter was under thorough investigation. "Our administration is committed to transparency and fairness," he declared. "No one, regardless of rank or position, is above the standards of respect and equality we must uphold." His words, though measured, carried the weight of a father defending his daughter and a leader determined to restore public trust. Meanwhile, the Internal Affairs report began to shed light on a troubling pattern. Interviews with multiple City Hall staff members and visitors revealed that Officer Blake's approach was not an isolated misstep. Several individuals recounted feeling unduly scrutinized, their brief encounters marked by a cold detachment that left them questioning their place in a system meant to serve them. These testimonies, compiled alongside physical evidence, painted a picture of an officer whose actions were increasingly at odds with the values of community engagement. Maya watched these developments unfold with a mix of relief and apprehension. On one hand, the acknowledgement of a broader issue validated her experience. On the other, it underscored the systemic nature of the problem. This was not just about one officer's conduct. It was a symptom of a larger cultural malaise within institutions meant to protect and include. At a community town hall meeting organized by local activists, voices from every corner of Atlanta joined in the chorus for reform. In a modest auditorium lined with banners advocating for justice and equality, citizens recounted personal stories of similar encounters. They spoke not only of fear and humiliation but also of hope. A hope that by coming together, they could rewrite the narrative of their city. Maya, now emerging as an unexpected spokesperson for change, listened intently as the community's collective voice rose, each testimony echoing the sentiment that everyone deserved to be seen and heard without prejudice. In that charged atmosphere, Maya took the stage to share her story once more. This time, however, her words were not just a recounting of personal pain but a call to action. "I stand before you not as a victim, but as a believer in the power of our collective voice," she declared, her voice steady and impassioned. "Every one of us deserves to feel safe, respected, and valued. Today, we demand that our institutions reflect that truth, not just in words, but in every act and policy." Her speech resonated deeply. Applause erupted, mingling with murmurs of agreement and resolute nods from those who had longed for change. It was clear that the incident at City Hall had become a symbol, a catalyst for a movement that would press for reform across all levels of public service. Local media outlets began to feature in-depth analyses of the City Hall security protocols, and investigative reporters dug into the history of complaints against Officer Blake. As public pressure mounted, even long-standing political allies of the administration found themselves compelled to address the issue, acknowledging that change was not only necessary but inevitable. For Mayor Rivera, the unfolding scandal was a double-edged sword. Public support for his daughter and the push for accountability provided a moral imperative to act decisively. In private meetings with his advisors, he grappled with the political ramifications, balancing the need for swift action with the realities of bureaucratic inertia. Yet, amid the turmoil, one thing was clear. The integrity of the institution and the trust of the citizens could no longer be taken for granted. As the Internal Affairs report neared completion, a palpable sense of anticipation gripped the city. Rumors swirled about potential disciplinary actions, ranging from retraining and formal reprimands to more severe consequences, including termination. Public opinion was firmly with those who felt they had been wronged, and the pressure on the administration to demonstrate accountability was immense. The city's pulse quickened as every update, every press release, sent ripples through the community, each a reminder that the call for justice was being heard. In the midst of this storm, Maya found solace and strength in the solidarity of her peers and the community. Her days were now filled with meetings with activists, interviews with local journalists, and collaborative sessions with other youth leaders determined to craft new policies that would safeguard against future injustices. Each interaction reinforced her belief that change was possible, that even the most entrenched systems could be reformed through collective will and compassionate leadership. Yet, as the investigation advanced and the public scrutiny intensified, Maya also felt the weight of the personal cost. The scrutiny of her every move, the unrelenting barrage of questions from reporters, and the invasive curiosity of political adversaries sometimes made her feel as though her identity was being dissected under a microscope. It was a challenge, balancing the duty to stand up for justice with the desire for a semblance of normalcy. But every time she saw the resolute faces in the community meetings, every time she heard the echoes of hope in the stories shared by fellow citizens, she was reminded of why this fight was so essential. One crisp evening, as dusk settled over Atlanta and the city's lights began to shimmer against the darkening sky, Maya sat on the steps of a local community center. The soft murmur of conversation and the gentle clink of glasses from a nearby cafe provided a soothing backdrop to her reflective solitude. In that quiet moment, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this point. The painful encounter at City Hall, the heart-to-heart with her father, the empowering workshop, and now, the surge of public outcry that promised to reshape the city's future. There was an undeniable beauty in the struggle, a beauty found in the courage to challenge an imperfect system and the hope that every small act of resistance could ignite a larger revolution. The investigation's final report was released amid a flurry of media coverage. Its findings were clear and unambiguous. Officer Blake's actions had violated established protocols and reflected a disturbing pattern of bias. The report recommended immediate disciplinary measures, including mandatory retraining and a comprehensive review of all security procedures. For many, it was a victory, a concrete step toward restoring trust in the institution. For Maya, it was a bittersweet affirmation. While her experience had catalyzed change, it was a stark reminder of the work still ahead to dismantle deeply ingrained prejudices. As the city began to heal from the shock of the revelations, the focus gradually shifted from retribution to reform. Community leaders, activists, and public officials, including Maya, joined forces to advocate for systemic changes that would ensure transparency, accountability, and true inclusivity in all public spaces. The momentum was palpable, a vibrant current carrying the promise of a more just future for every citizen of Atlanta. In a time of widespread reform, what do you think is the most impactful step that can be taken to rebuild trust between citizens and public institutions? In the weeks following the decisive internal affairs report, Atlanta began to awaken to the possibility of genuine change. The fallout from Officer Blake's misconduct rippled across the city, sparking a transformation that reached far beyond City Hall. For Maya Rivera, the events of the past few days, once a series of painful memories, had evolved into the building blocks of a movement that promised renewal and reform. The mayor's office, once a symbol of unyielding bureaucracy, had now become a hub of reform. Mayor Anthony Rivera, driven by both personal conviction and the unrelenting voices of a united community, initiated sweeping changes. New training protocols were introduced for every member of the security team, emphasizing cultural sensitivity, accountability, and community engagement. City Hall itself underwent a visible transformation, with the installation of more welcoming and transparent security checkpoints, designed not to intimidate but to ensure safety without sacrificing dignity. Maya's role in this unfolding narrative grew steadily. No longer was she merely the mayor's daughter or a silent witness to injustice. She had emerged as a symbol of resilience and hope. Invited to speak at community forums and local schools, she shared her story with honesty and passion, urging her peers and neighbors to look beyond individual incidents and work collectively toward a future where everyone was treated with respect. Her speeches were not only a cathartic release of her own pain but also a rallying cry for systemic change. One crisp morning, under a sky streaked with the gentle hues of dawn, Maya attended a public ceremony held in one of Atlanta's revitalized community parks. The park had been one of the first projects to benefit from the reform initiatives, a tangible symbol of the city's commitment to reconnecting with its citizens. Families picnicked on the freshly mown lawns, children laughed as they played on newly installed playground equipment, and community organizers mingled with local officials, all united by a shared belief in the power of renewal. At the heart of the ceremony, Mayor Rivera stepped onto a modest stage draped in the city's colors. With a calm yet resolute voice, he addressed the gathered crowd. Today, we mark not just the completion of a park renovation, but the dawn of a new era in public service. We have listened, we have learned, and we have acted. Our commitment to justice, equality, and transparency is stronger than ever. His words were met with a resounding cheer, a collective affirmation that the tide had truly turned. For Maya, the moment was profoundly personal. Standing beside her father, she felt a deep sense of connection to the city's heartbeat. Each smile, each nod from the crowd, reinforced her belief that even the most painful experiences could spark lasting change. As the ceremony progressed, community members shared their own stories of hope and struggle, weaving a tapestry of resilience that transcended the individual and celebrated the collective spirit of Atlanta. In the weeks that followed, reforms became evident in everyday life. City council meetings were open to wider public participation, ensuring that voices from all corners of the community could contribute to policymaking. A dedicated task force was established to review and update security protocols across all public institutions, ensuring that practices were regularly evaluated against the highest standards of fairness and inclusivity. Even local schools integrated civic education programs designed to empower young people to become active citizens, inspired by Maya's journey from personal turmoil to community leader. Maya herself continued to balance her personal aspirations with the weight of her public identity. Late one evening, as she sat in her modest apartment overlooking the vibrant cityscape of Atlanta, she reflected on the path she had traveled. The memories of that unsettling morning at City Hall, the tense conversation with her father, and the ensuing outcry had all contributed to her transformation. She realized that her struggle was not an isolated incident. It was a mirror reflecting the broader societal challenges that many had faced. And now, with the community's support and her own inner strength, she had become a beacon of change. Yet the journey was far from over. While the immediate reforms had begun to heal the wounds of the past, Maya understood that dismantling systemic biases was a continuous process. Every policy change, every public forum, and every community meeting was a step toward a future where justice was not a fleeting promise but an enduring reality. She resolved to remain vigilant, to keep questioning, and to hold her leaders accountable, knowing that true progress required sustained effort. In the months that followed, Maya spearheaded several community-led initiatives aimed at promoting civic dialogue and education. One such initiative was a series of community conversations held in local libraries and community centers, where residents could come together to discuss issues ranging from public safety to urban development. These sessions were characterized by an openness and honesty that had been absent in previous bureaucratic interactions. They became a cherished space where people of all ages and backgrounds could voice their concerns, celebrate their triumphs, and collaborate on innovative solutions for the challenges ahead. As the reform movement gained momentum, local media began to spotlight Atlanta as a city in transition, a city that was not afraid to confront its shortcomings and actively pursue a better future. Editorials praised the mayor's decisive actions, while community columns celebrated the grassroots efforts led by young activists like Maya. This positive feedback loop reinvigorated the public's trust in local institutions and reinforced the notion that change, however gradual, was indeed possible. For Maya, the legacy of these events extended far beyond the immediate impact of the reforms. It was a legacy defined by courage, resilience, and the belief that every individual's voice mattered. In countless conversations with friends, colleagues, and even strangers, she heard the same refrain: that the events of the past few months had inspired a newfound commitment to civic engagement. People shared stories of renewed hope, of feeling empowered to speak up and contribute to the betterment of their community. It was a reminder that change was a collective effort, one that required not only policy adjustments but also a cultural shift in how citizens interacted with the institutions meant to serve them. On one particularly reflective afternoon, as Maya walked through one of the newly transformed neighborhoods, she paused at a mural painted on the side of a community center. The mural depicted a rising phoenix, its vibrant colors and dynamic form symbolizing rebirth and resilience. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of optimism. The city, scarred by past injustices, was slowly but surely healing, with every step forward marking the promise of a brighter future. As dusk settled over Atlanta, casting a gentle glow over the revitalized streets, Maya realized that the journey toward true justice was ongoing. The fight against systemic bias required continual vigilance, empathy, and the willingness to embrace both the successes and the setbacks. Yet, in that reflective twilight, she also knew that the seeds of change she had helped plant would continue to grow, nurtured by the unwavering spirit of a community determined to ensure that every citizen was seen, heard, and valued. What do you think is the most important lesson we can learn from a community's collective effort to reform and rebuild trust in public institutions? Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, every voice matters, and together we can create a future filled with compassion, equality, and hope. Let love guide you as you stand strong against injustice, and know that our community is built on caring hearts and determined spirits. We appreciate each and every one of you, your courage, your compassion, and your commitment to making the world a better place. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories and powerful messages.